Hello everyone, and welcome to our chill Friday laid back, I don't know, video game stream where we play some good games. And today we're playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. A really cool game that I picked up recently. And it has some cool design decisions that we can talk about too. Specifically how the game kind of tries to make exploration interesting again by just not having a marker, but having kind of directions to go and stuff like that. Let's see if this works. Also, I'm going to be joined later by Felix. And yeah, we're going to talk about the game too. So I think right now he's a little busy with something, but I wanted to start streaming, so let's get to it. So let me open the chat so I can actually see what you guys are writing. Give me that pop out. That's right. Oh yeah. I think Felix is currently commenting something. Ah, true. Let's start the beginning. Oh, we have two options. We can play like in this mode where you see like who's talking and the whole shebang, and the game's kind of in the top left corner of it, or we go full screen. For now, we just do the usual where you can see like who's talking. Yeah, today I'm Radical Fish Games. Let me see if this is actually working. Yeah, you should see something, right? Tell me if it's too loud. So I'm pretty sure the game will have some lags because I'm streaming, but we'll see. I already played a bit into the game, like, I don't know, mid-game-ish, I think. It's always hard to say, you know, Assassin's Creed game, especially in the newer one, since you kind of get blasted full with so much side stuff to do. Right now I think I'm doing some quests to uncover some plot in Effie. A quick introduction. So you start as this mercenary who goes on a voyage to find her mother. This is Odyssey. Gotta play the new ones. Although I'm a bit late. I think the game is out like 3 weeks or something. I already had the pleasure of meeting Socrates. It was fun. Oh yeah. Yeah, so as expected, it's a bit laggy. Jesus. Tell me if the quality is good for you, please. I haven't met any mythical creatures yet, so I don't know. Right now it's pretty impressive. Especially I think they can take some freedom, since most historical data about this era isn't really available. So they're just free roaming it. Right, there's a marked guy for some reason. Alright. So yeah, the frame rate hovers at around 45. That's fine for me. It's fine for you guys. I think it's taking its toll because I'm streaming in full HD, 60 FPS. But when we're out of city, it should get better. Because usually the Assassin's Creed games, they kind of bottleneck at CPU, not GPU, because like there's so many people running around and so many processing to be done. Yeah, see, like the menu is 90 frames. I don't think you need to catch up on anything. Like each Assassin's Creed kind of stands on their own. I mean, this one plays even earlier than the Origins one, I think, so... And who cares for the modern world story, honestly? Alright, let's see. Let's do some questing. Alright, there's some physician in Argos. I think I already went there. Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, you're here already?
Yes. Yeah. I had the time a bit earlier than expected.
Nice. Can people hear Felix?
I think they do. I can hear myself in the stream. This is now kind of the thing. I would like to hear the sound of the game, but then I hear myself talking. So as a compromise, I turned out the stream in very low volume, so I can.
Yeah, the voice acting is actually pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know if I can stream it to you via Discord and not totally crash the game.
Yeah, I think that will be challenging. And also the thing is that we have to switch its channel, right?
Yeah.
They still don't support streaming in voice channels.
Not yet.
Which is, yeah,
Unlucky.org.
Would be great if they add this. Damn, but it's weird. Even though it's really quiet, it's still annoying. It's incredible.
Oh no! You can't be here!
Oh shit.
Hmm?
A very good AI.
Oh, there's damage numbers.
Give up already!
I should probably have my sword of flame.
So the last Assassin's Creed I played was, I don't know, some spin-off of the second one, I think. Maybe Brotherhood or something like that.
There was one for Assassin's Creed 2, I think.
Yeah. So it has been a long time. If I remember correctly, they changed the combat system a lot in the last game.
Yeah, so now you kind of, you don't just hold counter all the time. Oh, I should run. Give me a second here. I have a bounty on me. Yeah, so you kind of have multiple weapons, so you have like the full equipment thing in Assassin's Creed Origins you didn't have. You had only armor, I think. But now you have like a hoodie, like some gloves, whatever that is. In Greek, every person apparently always runs around in a skirt.
I see.
Then you have like 2 weapons that you can switch between. 1 bow, and then you can craft arrows.
So much more equipment options.
Yeah, definitely. Also lets you customize your character a bit more, which I like. They have like this
Mhm.
interesting concept that you can take any equipment piece and just upgrade it in exchange for materials to your level.
Hmm.
And this obviously costs a lot for like legendary armor. But if you really like the look of some armor, then you could go for that if you wanted to. Right,
Nice.
see, I wanted to take the Icarus point. Like the thing they had in the previous games where you... Okay, this is fine, I guess.
There are
Some
three
weird
types
magic
of
going on
damage.
here.
Hmm. Oh wow, okay. Magical staff.
Magic
Actually-
flowy stuff.
I saw the same thing in The Witcher 3 actually. When you kill certain characters in certain moments, the weapon are just stuck in the air. Like one was actually holding, one was holding an arrow. What happened?
I was just getting blasted off my horse.
Okay, does this usually not happen?
Come on.
That was the first time I saw that.
Okay.
Not the doggo. 3 types of damage. Yeah, there are 3 types of damage. Assassin damage is for like backstabs, then range damage and normal combat
Sanctuary
damage.
of Asclepios, god of medicine.
Oh, we got a navigation
I'd rather
system
trust
again,
a
I see.
physician than a god to heal me.
Yeah, but like in the top left, you can now see like I have a quest, and instead of giving me like a marker where I should go, it tells me, okay, you have to go to the city, and in the city, in the northeastern part of the city, there's like
Oh yeah,
a
I can see
clinic,
that.
and but it's optional yet. Like you can say, okay, I want the marker thing, or you can go for the exploration thing. And then when you're close to the location, your controller vibrates, and you can take Icarus and check if there's something cool. Oh, there's something cool.
Oh.
This is what I love about those games. You just
Ella.
wander around and then you see some golden question mark. Right, but first let's run over some pedestrians and
Oh.
go up to this. Can you jump here? Alright.
So like your bird is not flying to this question mark and will tell you what's there or what?
No. I just marked it for myself, so I
Oh,
know where
okay.
it's at. So this
Ah,
marker
you
will
marked
always
it
be on my
and
map.
okay.
Every other marker is like only in my view when it's like 100 meters away from me, I think.
Ah, I see. Okay.
And damn, this game is pretty. Like I put it on high for the stream now.
It looks
think-
fine to me.
Yeah, I think on Ultra this thing would probably melt.
Yeah.
But I think it's still pretty.
Yeah,
Especially
it still runs
the
really
bodies
well.
of water have actual local reflections.
Cool.
So they don't use any weird cube maps, but you can see the actual reflections on the water.
Hmm.
Like you can
This
see
game
it
is
a bit here.
expensive. Okay.
The
How expensive
islands.
is this game? How expensive is this game?
It was $60.
Like, okay.
The usual
Yeah, I mean-
price.
Like what AAA games just cost these days.
There are like bonus editions which cost more.
Mm,
And this game is built like a game as a service thing, where you can get like time savers for
mm.
money.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't really need them till now.
Alright.
I heard some complaints about like, yeah, you need to grind to get stuff, but I hadn't grind in any way. Like I'm just doing the side quests because they're
Yeah.
like really funny. Like I had a quest where I destroyed like a young man's mind by having sex with his father and killing his mother. But I
Okay.
didn't know that those were his parents, so come on.
So it's all okay.
So it's all okay. Also, this is like Greek time. You have sex with everyone. It's fine, man.
Alright, yeah. That's
I had sex
those were
with
the
gold.
times.
So
Yeah, there was no Christianity, so
Yeah.
people were just going wild.
Oh. Let's just jump here. I think it's fine. Who
Yep.
is it? Oh, a lion.
Flying.
Okay.
Flying still in the game.
Whoa, chill. I want to do like a dash. No.
Several.
Ah, okay. Get poisoned. Can I block? Okay. So you can like counter attacks when they shine like whitish. Oh shit. And when they're red, you have to like become. Oh damn. I think I should use it. Yeah. Oh, rectal. Those are like legendary animals you
Whoops.
can hunt for like a quest.
Yeah. Yeah, looks pretty challenging, those.
Yeah. I think I need better armor for that, to be honest.
I also have to be surprised that, I mean, I'm playing Witcher just on regular difficulty, like, not easy, but just regular, like the second one.
Normal.
But still, normal. Like, some of the enemies still are kinda like, kill you with 3 hits and stuff, so it can happen depending on who you're fighting.
I had the same thing with Witcher, like in the beginning at least. That,
I mean, to be fair, I think I could have upgraded my equipment a bit more, so maybe that would have made a difference. But you know, it's actually fine because I kinda liked that, because then he had like one fight where, you know, like you can just take 3 hits, but I actually like this kind of skill where you can always summon your shield to block 1 hit, and this kind of like gives you a bit of like safety, but it's not too easy since you only can cast it every so often. So, and it's kind of like an interesting strategy of always trying to maintain the shield by the same time trying to dodge and attack. So that kind of makes it a bit more interesting, I think. Even though it is pretty... Overall, the combat seems rather minimalistic in Witcher 3.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you can do additional stuff, like you could go for putting oil on your shield, on your sword and things like that, but I probably never did that, to be honest.
I did this for some of the quests. Like, there was one quest where an enemy is there and... but you know, you do this oil and then yes, you get like 10% more damage. It doesn't really feel like it has such a huge impact.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that to me, so I used the mutagene system to like buff my attack mostly.
I did that too, actually, yeah. That's an interesting system. So how's the combat in this game? Compared versus in Odyssey?
It kind of changes based on the weapon you use. So with the staff, you kind of want to dance around your enemy, mostly, and with like the heavy axe, you kind of let me set a point for this, so we can talk when this auto navigates.
Oh.
Right, some dude here, I guess. Okay. Yeah, with heavy bladed weapons, it's more like, yeah, you want to block them and then do like a heavy attack because those do the most damage, or use your abilities, because you have abilities mapped to your left button, so when you hold it down and then press a face button, you do 1 of 4 skills. This is for ranged combat, and then you have like the trigger for melee stuff. You can equip the skills however you want, so maybe you want... Oh, what's that? Is he strong? No, I can kill him. get this
Oh.
loot.
Come back here.
What? Yeah, Steph, you see me mostly when I'm playing solo. I'm mostly just dashing around.
Hmm.
And let me. What do I have? The dagger of
Night-
Cronus.
Nightbot is back. We are ready to finish games. Working on crosscode. Crosscode changed a lot in the recent weeks. As you can see.
Cricket, yeah, I mean, you can buy the game for like the base price. I did it, and I feel it's completely fine. Nothing really interesting going on in the extras. I feel like not even the season pass is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take the dagger out. Actually, can I? Yeah, I can. Okay. I want to assassinate him. It's those big damage to him.
So again, fighting against the Templars. Is that again the story?
No. Templar didn't even exist at this point in time.
Oh,
This is creepy.
right. Yeah, that's true actually. So why?
I mean, Origins was kind of the kind of start of how the whole Creed started.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit!
That's why it's
And-
Origins, I guess. Yeah.
And this one plays even further ahead. I think it's about to play
Okay.
because you have like the spear in my left hand. It's like I have the spear,
Let me
and that's Leonidas' spear, like the one from the. You probably know it from the 300 movie.
Yeah, maybe. If I wouldn't forget stuff like this all the time. Is this a Switch version of Crosscode? Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's how it looks like.
live.
We
gameplay.
kind of made
Actual-
made this run on the Switch, as you can see, and we also added 3D.
We also added a horse, so you can
Yes.
run over people.
Yep.
I personally really like the combat because it's about dashing around or blocking and using your skills if you want. I mean, you can fight like an assassin. Usually I take fights more cautiously, so I run around, stealth kill everything, and maybe shoot someone with an arrow in the head. They really changed how arrows work in this game, so you don't just one-shot everything, because that was pretty overpowered in Origins.
Yeah.
So now you have to use like special arrows, and you have to have high damage. And they kind of have this thing where when an enemy is above your level, then you do so little damage to them. Like you can't fight a level 30 enemy, even when you're skilled enough. You would take like literally 0 damage. almost.
That sounds a bit like Xenoblade.
It's a bit
least
like
you-
that, yeah.
Yeah, where you just missed enemies that were too far above your level all the time, so it was really difficult.
I mean, I don't mind it that much.
Yeah, to some extent this is, I think, important. I mean, in Crosscode, for instance, we didn't have to do that because you could only reach enemies in a pretty linear fashion. So to actually reach the high level enemies, you had to progress with the plot, unless you were a speedrunner. So that's why we didn't have to do anything like that. But if you would be able to reach higher level enemies and kill them all the time, yeah, maybe a system like that would have been necessary, I think.
Hello.
Because otherwise it's just if you can just kill high level enemies if you're skilled enough, then you just get a huge boost of XP in a system like Crosscode and money and other things, and that kind of like breaks the balancing of a lot of things like your quests and whatever. Like suddenly they don't make any sense because you just leveled way too far using the high level. It's kind of like how some people manage to actually defeat the Shredders in Vermilion Wasteland, and that's how they kind of like became too overpowered in terms of level and
Yeah,
which was why the jungle became too easy and stuff like that. So,
did-
you have to be careful about that.
We did remove the trade, right?
Yeah, we removed that one trade item. I think that helps a lot to make it a bit more challenging. But you know, if you're skilled enough, you still might be able to do it. I mean, to some extent, it's not an issue as long as it's not too easy. But yeah.
Man, this game is pretty like each city is like so meticulously designed.
Mm.
All those little details. You walk around and you have like some bases standing there. Okay, that shit we do too, but markets with custom models, like stuff is on the banks. I really like that.
Yeah.
Just stay back and you
That
won't
is
get
that
hurt.
is like triple A quality for
Should
you
be extra
essentially.
careful in
Whole
this
bunch of
area.
people working on that, creating all those assets, all those details. It is impressive, definitely.
You want to see something cool? Watch this.
What? I'm watching. I will answer in a few seconds. Did you just? Okay. Headshot from the distance.
So powerful, I can literally curve the path and arrows traveling.
Wow.
Easy.
All right. Easy.
Easily done, chat. Okay, so you're in Greek anarchist toppling nations. Lovely. Yeah, you can. You have like this ridiculously huge map. Like, dude, I'm not going to do all of this shit. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Hmm.
But each region has like a
That's like-
Athon, yeah,
Hmm.
an Athon or Spartan leader, and you can like do stuff in there to topple them and help like change who wins.
I see. That's a bit like the dilemma I have with The Witcher 3 also, that like there's so much stuff to do, and on the one hand, like you don't think you have the time, but the thing with Witcher is like there's a lot of that stuff is really funny and entertaining. I mean, I did show you that screenshot of the pig quest, right? Did you actually
Yeah.
see that one?
Yeah, I did that one too.
Because DK didn't. Like, this is actually one of those things that you can easily miss if you just don't explore around and look at the different cities and actually take your time exploring the area. And it's such a funny little quest. And you know, because of stuff like this, I kind of like want to explore all the stuff.
I mean, you I kind of did it like I was just wandering around, and whatever comes on my way is like cool, and this is kind of my journey through the game.
Yeah.
And everything else is like I missed that, but that's fine. Those names, Hippolytus.
By the way, as something I noticed about these kind of open world games and exploration and maps, like I think that's one of the things that is always like a good thing, that you have one simple two-dimensional map for your world, because a lot of games did that and it worked well. Like, especially if you compare the Xenoblade games, Xenoblade 1 and 2 didn't have the simple two-dimensional map, and instead they had like really complex terrain, and it was sometimes a bit confusing to navigate through it, as far as I remember, because it was sometimes a bit hard to see where you actually are, because you had several layers and they were connected in a complex way. And Xenoblade X in comparison was pretty straightforward, because it again had this simple 2D map. And I think that it's something to keep in mind. I guess it's kind of like at least a good approach to kind of like I mean, on the one hand you want to have complex worlds where it's interesting to navigate them, but there's also probably a way to overdo things to make it confusing, and I think Xenoblade 2 in particular probably overdid it in some parts, at least a bit. Do you actually remember this one part where you had to reach this one area in
Let's hope no one notices me.
this industry area, you know, where everything was dry and there was machinery? I forgot the names.
Xenoblade 2.
Xenoblade 2, yeah.
Yes,
know.
I know that you mean like the third Titan.
Yeah,
Yawn.
third or fourth, I'm not sure. Something like that. And then there was like, at one point I wanted you to go to this one area where there are these high-level enemies and everything.
Oh, yeah, I think I already know where you're going with this.
Yeah, and the thing is, I actually looked for a long time how to get there. Funny thing is, they decide to go there when you are in a certain spot in the map. And after I had this cutscene and everything, the first thing I did was essentially teleport back to the beginning. I thought, hey, now I can cross this bridge, but I can't because this bridge is still closed. And I like was looking around so long until I eventually found this one small door that you had to enter in this one part, actually pretty close to where the last cutscene was. You just had to enter this one door and go through like some interior complex, and then suddenly you are there. But this is like something which is like you couldn't see this on the map. And if you miss that door, like you have been essentially stuck. At least that's the impression I got. So that is one of these things where it was kind of messy. Like this exploration aspect.
I remember for those, like, it would help just to make sure that your map maybe shifts to something like in Metroid Prime, right? Where you have a little bit rotating thing, or in Breath of the Wild, where you also had like this map that would rotate.
Yeah, that helps a lot if you, of course, you can communicate these kind of things through cutscenes very effectively, but just focusing
Holy
where
shit,
you need to go.
Free shot me!
What?
Oh, damn!
Oh, those snakes! Damn! Alright.
Damn!
Damn! Snake!
Unlucky snake!
No, that sounds wrong. Oh, hi Michelle! Look, we're doing game dev totally. This is the new Rust code version, as you can see. Over complexity. Did someone say Divinity's original since 2? Huh.
Yeah, but this game is meant to be like this complex. It's like the true
of course.
RPG experience. I have no idea where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think the tomb was somewhere here, right? Yes.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, using cutscenes is always a good way to communicate these kind of things. Though, I mean, even then you sometimes have to be careful, because cutscenes are something that you see once, and there's always the possibility that the player misses it. And I think there was actually that one thing. That's one of the reasons why the water temple in Ocarina of Time is so notorious in certain parts, because there's this one puzzle which is really mean, where you have this one box that blocks an entrance underwater, and when you raise the water, this box floats up and reveals some kind of exit down there. And I think the game hints you to that, because if you raise the water, it actually shows you a cutscene where you see this box floating up. But I think a lot of people still miss that one exit down there, because then you just keep looking for this one key and you can't find it. So you kill the snakes?
There are like 5 of them. No wonder I died.
Oh no, wow.
Like, look how much damage they do. They do like
Yeah,
1/3 of my HP bar.
Damn.
Oh damn. This
That was close again.
This looks dangerous.
That's some really dangerous place.
I'm scared,
yeah.
chat. Don't kill me.
So, I mean, essentially what they could have done in Xenoblade to I think fix this kind of thing is just make the door like more stand out. Make the entrance to this whole complex more, like, look more relevant, more important,
That's true, specifically for this section.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could. You can so easily miss it. Like,
Yeah.
I was just
It's like
exploring, so it was fine, I guess. But
yeah,
you said not
it's kind of
everything
like
is
it's a little bit of luck. You may just find it if you explore by yourself, and then you certainly see it. It's just that for something which is really like main plot relevant, I think you should make sure these kind of things stick out, that they like seem important or like something you might have to enter. I think the game don't even mention that you have to go through this complex. It's kind of like expected that you just essentially find the way yourself. It just tells you where you need to go, and that's all, as far as I remember, at least. Yeah.
that's actually true. I remember too. Like, there wasn't a mention of the door.
Yep.
Actually, when I first got there, I thought this is totally a side area, but I go there
Okay.
just to check it
Then you
out.
suddenly main plot, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
suddenly
boy.
plot.
Yeah. That's
Because I
awesome.
felt like, okay, they are high-level enemies, so this is probably not the right way, right?
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
But you have to like skim a little bit on the side to them, and
Yep.
then you see enemies on your level, and you're like, oh shit, this is the way.
Yep, it is. Again, so that's why I think like having a simple 2D map, at least for the majority of content. I mean, obviously, if you have complex areas, you want to have multiple levels, like certain dungeons and stuff like that. But if for like the overworld, I think just having a simple 2D map is probably a good thing, for the most part at least.
Things to keep in mind
Yeah.
for even for next game, but next game.
For the
is-
next game, yeah.
I think
I mean,
we kind of have the thing going for it that we can say, okay, there's a map name, and searching something in a map is easier. There's always
Look, you
only so much you
insignificant
can do.
peon. Tell me where he is, or by Ira,
Hmm?
I'll burn this
What do you
clinic
mean
to the ground
exactly?
with you in it.
I already told
Well,
you
in
what I know.
Xenoblade, you have like a
I
big
don't
open
ask
area,
much.
right?
Hippocrates must show
And
humility to
most
ensure
of-
public order.
Only some of them have
Prostrate
like
himself
specific
before the gods and
sub-areas
declare
named.
that his skills
So when
are
you go
God's
to
given.
give
But that won't
direction,
help his patience.
Um,
It'll just take him away
you
from
kind
his
of
work.
If
don't
Hippocrates
have
thinks he can
a
disrupt
good way
social
to
order
like
to make
say,
himself
okay, you
into a
go
demigod
there
of
in
healing,
this general direction.
well, perhaps the gods themselves
But in
will have
crosscode,
their
for instance, we
revenge.
can just say, okay, map name.
oh, right, yeah. I mean, that's like, how do you tell people where to go? I mean, that's this kind of thing, like, I can understand that you want to avoid the markers and just follow always the markers because it kind of like feeds them down a bit. But, I still like the way, Breath of the Wild
I'm
did it,
sure
essentially.
there's
They
no
have
need
this
for
kind of
raised
approach that you
voices.
have simple
Who
2D
are
map,
you?
but
I'm
they
looking for a
avoid
man
markers,
named
and what they do is
Hippocrates.
essentially tell you
Yet another
the name of the
crazed follower
location.
of the madman
And I
himself.
really like this, how like
Tell
most
your
parts of the
impious
map actually had a
master
name.
that unless
Whenever
he
there
makes
was a
a
quest
public
nearby, it told
apology,
you,
and
yeah, you have to
soon,
go to this or to the
priestess
north
of
part
Ira
of
will
this.
gather
And
an army of faithful and shut
that's
him
also
down.
something I noticed about
Out of my way.
like
Oh,
comparing
thank
The
all the
Witcher
gods
with
she's
Breath of the
gone.
Wild is
I thought she was going to kill me this time.
What's going
like in
on?
Witcher, whenever you look
I'm
for something,
Sostratus.
it's usually
Croesus
something
has accused my
really
master
small that
Hippocrates
it's
of
really hard to
impiety.
see from the distance.
Is
I mean,
he
most of the time
impious?
you're looking for
He
some
believes
kind
that
of
beyond praying, people can
proof
take
where
their health
something
into their
happened,
own
like
hands
I don't
and
know,
make
some
themselves
corpse,
well.
or maybe
Fascinating.
some hidden
Can
treasure,
I speak with
or
him?
something small that
I'm
you
sorry,
simply
he
can't
isn't
see from
here.
the distance. And then there's also like forests and all this kind of stuff where you can't see very far in the first place. So essentially, like, you need to. It's always like finding the needle in the haystack, and that's why I think using markers like this is to some extent necessary,
I'll
because
find him.
otherwise the game would
If
be
you're going to
too
meet
frustrating.
Hippocrates,
I mean,
could I
the-
trouble
the,
you with a
um,
small errand?
I
Depends
remember
what
like
it
the
is.
first
I
quest
want you
I
to
did,
bring
like,
him
the-
some
I think
equipment.
a lot
He
of
was in
people did
such a
this.
hurry, he
That's
left
the
it
first
behind.
quest, the one with the ghost in the well.
Yeah.
This one
mhm.
actually told you where you go and what to look for, and because it had like so distinct landmarks, like okay, there's a well, gotta check the well. So
Yeah, that one worked. I mean, there's a few quests where they are very detailed with instructions,
What
but
kind of
you
equipment?
realize that
It's just
with
medical
some time they
necessities.
kind of like
Knives, a gun
made
for
things
sutures,
simple. And I mean, I
bandages.
still remember this is one
Oh,
quest where this one
and
guy
an
tells
enema
you,
bed for cleaning the
yeah,
bowels.
That
my
had
body
better
is
be properly wrapped.
like where you have to find the corpse of his father, and he tells you, yeah, it's in the swamp. And I played this quest 2 times because of certain reasons, so I made exactly sure, yeah, that's all he tells you, it's in the
I
swamp.
could bring that
And
to
you're like in this
Gratis.
one open world,
Really?
and you know, of course, there's one popular swamp, which doesn't have a name, by the way. It's just
My
like the largest swamp, but
services
there's other places which are
don't
also
come
swamps.
free.
And
Here,
this one
take
swamp
this.
where it was
Though
in
perhaps
the largest
Hippocrates
swamp.
can
It's
teach you
pretty
something
big.
about helping those in need when you speak
Like,
with him.
if you
How will I
now,
know who
if
I'm
you would
looking
tell me,
for?
yeah, look in the
Head
swamp
southeast of
for
Hera's
this one
Watch,
corpse,
near the Cave of Pan.
that would have been
He'll
kind
be
of
standing
annoying.
before a long line
So
of sick
I was
people.
pretty happy that
You'll
they
know
kind
him
of
by
gave me a
his
marker on that.
bald spot.
But of course, I
Though
mean, doesn't
I
mean
wouldn't
markers are
mention it.
absolutely necessary. It's kind of like how you design the world and how you kind of like how you place landmarks and give hints and stuff like that.
So
So
many
it
sick
definitely also
people.
works without.
Can one man help all of
But
them?
I think it's just it's more challenging if your quests always evolve around finding stuff which is hard to see from the distance. I mean, essentially, to make it work, you need to specify something close by which is easy to see from the distance. That makes it much more interesting because then you can look around, see that thing, and then go there. So that kind of like feeds more like exploration and more like you're actually doing something more challenging than just following a marker, while not being this kind of needle in a haystack situation where you just walk around, going to every centimeter, looking very closely until you find something, because this can be really bothersome if you do this too often.
That is true. That is true. That's why I like the way they did it here. Like, give a general direction, and then you can use
Yep.
Icarus to pinpoint that. You don't have to. You can also try and find it on your own, the character or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds like a good compromise too. And what happens when you're nearby? So how do you find this? I mean, what are you usually looking for in this game?
Well, do you have like these hints for it, where to go? And then when they say a big city or a, kind of a region, then you know, okay, I have to go to Corinth, and in Corinth there is like a city, Corinth or something like that. So okay, I go there, and then there are markers there, and then from the landmark, it's south of that landmark or north of that landmark.
Okay.
If you're in 150 meters of that range, your controller vibrates and gives you a hint that there is a quest objective close by.
Oh, okay.
Then you can use Icarus to locate the exact location of that person. Because he can, like, when he sees something of interest, it kind of gets this marker. And when it's like a quest objective, it's like a golden marker.
Ah, I see. That's an interesting approach, yeah. But that's also again something that I noticed, that like exploration games really make use of being 3D and having this possibility to look far away.
Yeah,
that is definitely an advantage of 3D, because like in 2D, like with a top-down perspective, like in Crosscode, you can only look so far. So you kind of like, it always has this implicitly this kind of you're walking around blindly until you find something, unless you have like a big map, of course. So essentially, you really have to rely on information on the map to give the general direction, since the player cannot really see far away and use hints that way. I mean, when you're close by, you can rely on other things, I suppose. More lions.
more lions. Stand very close to him and use paralyze arrows.
Also, Michel gives us advices for the next game. He says it must be 3D, Unreal based and totally battle royale with unicorns, a western setting, and heads. Must be DLCable. Okay.
Of course,
Your
if
work
Deck
will-
13 is paying, then
Sure, if you fund this.
Easily
So,
done.
what has
Yeah,
caused
Let me
this
get
look
man's
like-
something to
An
drink.
excess of phlegm, Doctor.
In the immediate
back
sense,
in,
yes. But more importantly, he suffers from
All
neglect.
right.
Neglect?
Good food, warm clothing, so much
Practice.
could have helped. But since other caretakers assumed his condition
So,
was a
how is
punishment
everybody
from the
doing?
gods, they neglected him.
I'm in the voice chat.
Challenging tradition. You must be Hippocrates.
Yes, I'm also very busy.
Scout burp, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's waiting for the answer. But yeah, it's actually pretty interesting to play some of the other games that I missed over all these years. Back again?
Yes. The cat thought that once I'm gone, she can take my seat.
Obviously. Cat takes over, plays the game for you.
Come here, Hippo. Good kitty.
Just 7 years you missed, nothing happened. Yeah, that sounds like it. I mean, to be fair, in the beginning of CrossCode development, I was still playing more games. I still remember how I played The Last of Us some time or in the first years. So,
This will only take a moment.
but
I
especially
won't
like
keep
the
you
last
waiting
3 years,
with
I
patience.
didn't really play a lot. So.
Students?
Observation,
I still need to buy a
experience, and
PS4
experimentation
sometime.
are crucial for treatment. My followers are learning that.
I've come from your
Just
clinic
7
in
years you
Argos.
missed.
So Stratos
Nothing
asked me to
special.
give you
Yeah.
this.
I knew I forgot some
Exactly.
things. So Stratos is a good physician, but a better apprentice there is none. Did you ask him to pay you for this delivery?
Of course I did. I'm a Misthios.
Ungenerous, but honest at least. What can I call you, Mistios?
Cassandra of Sparta.
What did you come here for,
Cassandra.
Cassandra of Sparta?
Mm.
I've been searching for a Spartan woman.
What makes you think I would know her?
I was
Cassandra of
told
Sparta.
you may have helped her a long time ago.
Maybe the priests at the sanctuary of Asclepios can help. They keep detailed records of all who pass through.
Please, Hippocrates, I came very far to meet you.
As did this patient, and the one before him, and the one before her. My patients need me, but my notes on diseases of the mind were taken. Retrieve them,
Who
and
was
I will help you
Hippocrates
find
again?
what you seek.
I'm really bad at
Hurry, this
remembering
patient doesn't have much time left.
those people.
What did you say?
Who was Hippocrates again? I'm just gonna Google.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not necessarily all names are
I'll do my best with what you
Good luck.
like dialogue.
There might have been
no
several
harm.
Hippocrates. Yeah.
Right, new quest. Multiple quests accepted. So okay, this happened. This happens a lot where you like go to some place and then this guy says, "Okay, do this for me, or do that for me." The sanctuary is blah blah blah. The Valley of Dreams. It's west of the Trojan military camp. Is this occupied by Athens or by Sparta? By the Athens, okay.
Ah, a Greek medic. That's what he was. Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely a medic. That's what I
Mm.
understood so far too.
So, what do you think of quest interfaces? Actually, which game do you think has among the best interfaces for quests or stuff like this? Stefan,
Quests.
like how you kind of like see quests, how you get updates for quests and stuff like this.
Let me think. I mean, this here is pretty well done, I think.
Hmm.
Like they make an effort to like give you the information that you did this quest. Now do this, which is updated in your highlighted quest. So you have like one quest you can highlight, and in your quest menu you have like a list. You can also categorize quests, which I think is pretty good. Like you have categories like your own Odyssey, which is the main story quests, and then we have like world quests, which I think would work better in tabs than like
Instead of having
always.
this,
Yeah.
it's kind of like exactly how they do it in Witcher. And I'm also not a big fan of that because like if you wanna select something else, you sometimes have to scroll through a long list. So,
Which
yeah.
we do too in Crosscode. So
Where do we do that?
we have like one list for all quests that are active. And when
Oh.
you take a lot of quests, then you would have to scroll a lot too.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, if you would separate that, I think I would rather use tabs.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Like,
Because I mean, we already do have tabs for solved, not solved, and similar things.
I think
All, yeah. You see. I mean, what I'm curious about, like, Witcher is kind of interesting. Like when you solve a quest, you actually don't get like a very emphasized quest solved dialogue, but it just tells you quest solved in this left corner, and then it tells you, yeah, you get that much money and you get this amount of items, and it kind of like runs in parallel as you already keep running around. And I think actually Breath of the Wild did something similar, if I remember correctly. While compared to Xenoblade 2, they have, or in Xenoblade, they have this kind of box showing up that you now solve this quest, like how we did in Crosscode 2.
Yeah, I didn't like Xenoblade 2's interface. Like, specifically because the menuing in the game is so slow.
Yeah.
Like, there's a 1 second fade out timer for everything. I don't get why. I don't know if it's really a technical thing, because that's hard to believe for some reason. I don't understand.
I don't believe that's a technical thing.
You have it here too. Like when you go into the menu, like there's this black fade out, and then fade in again.
Well, I mean, in theory, that could be to kind of like bridge a little bit of loading time, because I could imagine that they don't want to keep the map memory all the time.
The map thing I get, but when I'm moving between menus, like they don't even catch that. Like I have to wait every time.
Okay.
At least I would kind of try to keep them in memory. Especially on PC. Like I have 16 gigabytes. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I also noticed this with The Witcher, like how when opening the menu, it's like it's noticeably slower compared to the game. It's like it doesn't even have the full frame rate. It's like
it doesn't even run. Yeah,
and it's a very simple 2D animation, and why? It's like it shouldn't be that hard to animate this fluidly.
We even specifically made it possible for UI elements to smoothly move on pixels.
I don't know. Maybe there's just some weird limitations that we don't understand because they do complex 3D. I have no idea, really.
Also maybe because those games are kind of made for console first. Or something like that.
But that's probably not the case for Witcher 3, right? It's a burp time. But yeah, I have to say I kind of like this minimalistic approach where when you solve a quest, you don't have like this one big interface that you have to confirm, but instead it kind of like keeps showing on the left and just one thing after the other. That's also something I noticed, like in Crosscode we very often stack updates so that you see all the stuff at the same time, while in other games they very often kind of like pan it out and show one thing after the other, so there's not too much information at once.
Yeah, we kind of did this with the top messages.
Yeah, with the top messages we did that. Yeah, they work that way. But like we do the thing is we do not only have top messages, but also like all the right messages. Like you get items, you get money, and then there's like the quest information and all kind of stuff. And might be worth considering like kind of like simplifying this a little bit. At least I would consider that you don't have too much stuff at once.
When they slithered in,
Because for the most
turns
part, it's
out
not really
he's
necessary
terrified
to
of
see all the
snakes.
information at the
Fell
same
over
time.
dead. Now the snakes have made him their home.
What if I took care of your snake problem?
All right.
Would you talk to me then?
Oh, most definitely.
Hmm.
The purification bath is crucial in the path towards healing.
Alright, yeah, goodbye. Yeah, there's always a thing with these kind of single player games.
I'll take care of your snake
Streaming
problem.
those.
Then you'll tell me what I.
Oh, Misha actually had some comments. Witcher 3 does okay, not perfect, but okay. AC series is too overpowered emo. Divinity does an okayish job, really good tracking view. I kinda can understand the approach games such GTA 4 and Metal Gear took. But just set a marker on the map and start the quest once the player is there.
You mean like how to start a quest?
Yeah, but I'm also wondering what this is about. Is it about how
There he is.
quests are managed interface-wise, or
over
how
there.
exploration is done? Yeah. Also didn't play GTA quest tracking. All right.
Well, tracking is like I think what Felix was mentioning is was like what information you were showing.
Yeah, like how to. That was always the thing with crosscode. The thing where when you actually make an update with the quest, like you make progress, we always I mean you always have the option
No.
to show the current
But
task
I'm
in the upper
searching
right
for a
corner,
Spartan
obviously.
mother who may
But
have.
then you also get an update.
Great goddess Ira guides
What
many
you have to do
mothers
next
this
whenever
sacred
this
place.
changes, like
Surely
independent
I'm
of which
too
quest you're currently
feeble to
tracking.
remember them all.
And it was always,
What
it
are
actually
these
tells you
stone
what
slabs
step you
for?
currently solved, and then at one point we decided
These are,
to change this so it shows
we
you
document all who
what
pass
you have to
through,
do
their
next.
illnesses,
And
treatments,
then
so
we
that
also
the
added an
glory of
option so you can turn
Asclepios
it
can
back,
be
because
celebrated.
there might be people
Then I don't
who
need
don't
your
like
memory.
this. The thing is,
I
I
just need
think
to
nobody
find the
actually
right stone.
commented on that. At least I don't remember anybody commenting on that
yes,
I don't
aspect
know,
of
we
this
just
change.
changed
That's very wise indeed.
Yeah. But
Only
at
took
least
the
me
time to
personally, I
help you.
always notice like it kind of depends on the situation really. There are certain quest tasks where you're actually happy to know what you just solved. But there are a lot of quest tasks, I think, where it's kind of redundant. Where
My mother
you don't
came
know,
through here. And unless you want me to paint
like
these
where you
stones with
already
your
know what
blood,
just happened,
you'll
and the
tell
game
me
just tells
what
you,
know.
and it feels kind of redundant.
Please,
Especially like when you're like
it's
going somewhere,
Chrysis.
and
She
then it
said
tells
that
you,
anyone
yeah,
who talks to
find
the
out
eagle bearer will
the
be
source
paying a
of what
visit
happened
to
there, and then you're
Hades.
already fighting the
Then
source, and
don't
like you don't
talk.
need to know you just
Just
found that, you just
follow
want to
me
fight
then.
that. So
Lead the
in
way.
those situations, it's much better to know what you have to do next. But on the other hand, if you run around and you have to collect items,
This
and then
way.
you find all those
Over
items,
here.
if the game then tells you,
If
okay, you
anyone is
found, you
watching,
did that, no,
I'll have
talk
my
to this
head.
NPC, then you wonder
What
why
kind of
do I need to talk to this
sanctuary isn't
NPC?
safe
So
for its
those are actually
priests?
quests where you want to
Times
know
have
what you
changed,
just completed.
eagle bearer.
So like there's always, depending on the task, you may want to have the one thing or the other. Funny enough. Yeah, I
mean,
just talked too much.
Dragon Quest, in Dragon Quest 11, there's like they made it easy. Like, all right, here in this quest, kill this enemy. It's always the same type of quest. Kill this enemy. Kill this enemy using a certain pep power, or find me an item. And then you have like, once you've done this, your quest updates to almost done. Return to this person.
Okay,
I remember
that sounds
this.
like really exciting
I
quest
can
design.
bring the time
Yeah, I
the
stopped doing the
great
quests
healer
after a
reborn.
while. Unless they had
Yeah.
some reward that
I
was-
don't need the history, just the details.
It tells the
Interesting.
tale
Yeah.
of a woman with worms in her throat.
I mean, I guess that is what people
Asclepios
usually complain
took
about
off their
generic
head
quests.
So we could remove them, then
When
reattach
you
it
do
in
these
her
kind of
skin.
things too often.
Definitely not
The funny
the
thing
right
is,
one.
Witcher is really,
I wonder
like,
what
in
Hippocrates
The
would
Witcher
think
3, a
of
lot
these
of the quests are
treatments.
not that terribly unique. It's I kind of like, I still try to really understand why it always
Shown?
feels interesting to do the
He's
quests.
healing the sick right
And I
now.
think it really is
Too
pretty much
faith in
like
his hands.
all the flavoring they add to it, like all the story,
When
like
it
the
comes to life
characters, and
death,
how much effort they
I
put
prefer
in.
hands.
Like,
Are all
did
the
you always
testimonies
have
so
custom cutscenes. At least they do feel custom, even though there might be some system behind it to construct them. But they have so many custom cutscenes for pretty much every quest, and that kind of makes it interesting. And there's always like, it is always a little bit roundabout what you do. Like when you tell you have to kill this monster, it's not just about go kill this monster. It's there, but it's always like connect a little bit of doing like this research work, trying to figure out what kind of monster that first is, why it's there, and sometimes you actually even get other solutions. Always connected like with doing this bit of detective work before you fight the monster. And that kind of like makes it unique because it's not always the same for every monster. Stuff like that.
And Eureka,
Hello.
man's best friend indeed.
This is hopeless.
These stories give people hope, Eagle Bearer.
Well, I'm losing mine. Tell me about Chrysis.
A very powerful, dangerous woman.
I'm thinking about like what I want to do for our next game is definitely try to avoid like having these first quests. Like the puddles don't have local reflections.
Impossible. 0 out of 10. Literally unplayable.
You don't see it, but this one is clearly not the same reflection as anything that's before me, man. It's just
Yeah.
Where are you going? She was loved.
That puddle ruins the game.
that puddle, man. Puddle ruining my games again.
So when her
So what
death
did
was
you
Amazing
consider for the
Spider-Man
next game?
all- it's Spider-Man all
Yeah.
again.
who opposed her,
Yeah.
Got what?
I've already said
But
too
yeah,
much.
I want to avoid this for the next game. Like, clearly we have to like avoid doing the crazy stuff at the beginning because it's too overwhelming. But just having little, not that much fetch quests. But
Yeah.
give them something a little unique maybe to do, like the first,
Mm.
like the Skater Boy quest. Like that was
Like-
unique.
I had a certain idea why it might think that some of the quests seem a little bit dry, even though I still think for the most part actually Crosscut isn't all that bad as some people
Not
mention.
at all,
but
man.
no, I think it overall it's already we did a good job, but it's kind of like the perception in the beginning is kind of like skewed to a certain way.
And
But
what about
like
this one?
something
Let me guess.
we do have certain repeating
Tell the
patterns,
tale
especially with the
of a
faction
blind
quests, I think.
woman who had
And
her eyes licked by
like in the
snakes.
beginning, you go to this official building, and then you say, yeah, you go to all these factions that do all these different things, and then you go to these factions and they give you like different
Why
tasks,
is most
and
of it scratched out?
it's always this kind of official
I'll just tell you,
setting
I
where you
know
have
this one
like
by
this
heart.
somewhat official
the Spartan woman
faction
arrived
that gives you a
filthy and bleeding
task
from her
to do
travels.
some stuff,
We
and
cared for her, gave her
like
food,
this makes
a
it
bath,
maybe a little bit
and she
dry.
left.
Like in theory at least, but then again we do have characters like we do have
Could not be
NPCs in those factions that
does
do
know
have
where she
to some
went?
extent a character and that interesting, I think. So
saved. We've been spotted.
I'm not really sure.
Meet me later.
Yeah, I think when you
near the
listen
olive tree
to
of Heracles
what they say,
at
like
the
they
entrance of the
have
sanctuary.
custom sprites and
have something
everything,
for
so
you.
And what
Yeah.
do we have here? A priest and a mercenary
talking
out for a
custom
friendly
stuff.
stroll?
May the gods
I
be
think-
with you, please.
I thought it was pretty well
I
done.
was just on my way to
But I
the
guess a lot of
archives
people just
when
thought they
this
ran
misfears bumped
from A
into
to
me.
B. And
Is that so?
Mm,
And what were you both chatting about so fervently?
I'm filthy and could use a good
yeah,
bath.
I mean it was like we used
kind
some of the
priest here
quests
was
also to
pointing me
introduce
out.
stuff, and then
Yes, that's correct.
like there was this trading
The
introduction
bathhouse is
quest which
right
felt
over
like a
there.
grindy quest
Now, if you'll
essentially.
excuse me.
The
And
baths are
then
for
we had the
killing
Henry
sick,
quest,
not for washing the
which
blood
was
off one's
the
hands.
Henry quest was
Leave.
pretty great in the end, but like the whole process was pretty much do all these things you need to do in that area every time, which I mean to be honest isn't like a huge deal. It's mostly just what you do anyway in each area, but it's still like it feels like a grinding quest because you have this list of stuff to do all the time. And we pretty much copied that from Xenoblade X, I think, right?
Best
yeah,
stay out of
I
sight.
absolutely did that.
Yeah.
That was my.
It's always
intention
interesting.
when like I thought, like, oh, that's like a good idea. So people can like making a quest out of something they probably do anyway.
Yeah.
Which was something one reviewer actually praised, like having this quest for the botanics.
The botanics quest is a little bit different though. That is, I mean, yeah, that is also to some extent a fetch quest, but it's, you know, all it tells you, yeah, find those plants, and there's actually a huge system built around that. So I don't think that one feels too much like a fetch quest, personally, I think.
Also, it's just fun.
Yeah, I mean,
To
I definitely want to have something like destroying plants again in the next project. That definitely worked well.
That
So
worked way too well to not use it again.
yeah.
Right, I have no idea what they were talking about. I think they were talking about my mom. Mom, are you here?
What?
Mom? It's your little baby. Sandra. I'm alive. I'm mostly killing people.
It's a job.
It pays the bills.
Yep.
The 500
I'm not an
BCE.
assassin. I'm not a crazed gunman. I'm an assassin. Or what was it? Like that.
I can play like gunplay. Like you can throw your spear at enemies and like teleport to them. Kind of teleport. An insta kill. And like this guy.
Did we actually say hi to Infinity Simplex? No, they're very high. More assassinations.
More
Yay.
assassinations.
May Asclepius spare her from suffering.
Will she live?
Not unless the gods heed our prayers.
Assassinate them all.
Many sick Athenians have arrived in Argolis recently. And very
It's
few have
fine.
left.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like we're
This
doing a long stream, like
poor
maybe
girl
1
has the same
hour and
sickness.
then we're gonna
Yep.
stop. Just doing some chill stream arena so we can get our partnership or I don't know, whatever.
Well, actually, who's playing? Who's playing is currently Regidan, actually.
Yeah.
So Stefan, like I'm just listening.
there
I'm
anything I
watching
can do
and
to help?
talking, mostly
I was
talking.
warned of the Eagle Bearer. Wants nothing but drachmi
Yeah.
for blood. I was told.
We're wasting time, priest.
Her illness seems to have no cure.
I'm the
And
god
it's ready.
gamer currently playing
Our
this video game.
sacrifices have done little to draw the
God
attention of the
gamer.
gods.
Mm.
Pigs,
You could also
goats,
have played Clown.
all
Hero.
have fallen on deaf ears.
Clone
When
hero,
we did
right?
these, those
Yeah.
blood will
I mean, I
ignite
actually,
strength for
at
Asclepius
least
to
when
see.
I asked Deadness, he
What
said,
did you
yeah,
have
that
in
probably is not a
mind?
problem.
There is a rumor of a bull
even
with
if,
skin as white as snow
We
roaming
get
the
the
sanctuary
video on
outskirts.
demand silenced.
Head
It's
west of
not a
here,
big deal,
towards the
apparently.
coast. Bring it to me alive.
Reg Den is playing, Felix is complaining. Both discuss other games while AC is being played. Yep. But you know, this kind of concept apparently works really well. Like you have these videos where people just talk about whatever and there's like 100% unrelated gameplay footage playing in the background. At least that has been like a thing since at least half a year or
I'll
a
find
year, I
this book
think.
for you.
Also, the
maybe
usual
longer even.
YouTube analysis video. Hey guys, it's Ajax at you again with another video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, follow,
Unsubscribe,
name my
please.
baby. I don't know,
Yeah.
all the gist.
Please dislike and unsubscribe.
Please dislike and unsubscribe. I have enough money now.
Yeah.
Sure. Where am I going? I would help the priest to get information about Marine.
Marine,
I kinda
okay.
just want to kill this lion, to be honest.
Then kill that lion.
But I'm not well.
Lion must die.
Lion must die. The Radical Fish Games, Good Games. Games podcast. I should do stuff that's not related to the story, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think people would probably prefer that.
So
because
let's
it's
just
spoiler.
explore this. Why is this map so ridiculously huge, man?
Yeah. Why do worlds have to be so open? I mean,
Yeah.
why do have games be so open world these days? Jeez. Actually, something I'm actually really considering, at least trying to do for the next project, is to have maps kind of like dynamically loading and expanding, so that you don't have these strict map barriers that we currently have.
Yeah, that's something we talked about, yeah.
Yeah, even though it might be challenging to do that, at least somewhat, but it might be doable.
I think what we can do is just, for instance, like force camera positions at the exits and entrance of maps, so that the camera kind of doesn't go out of bounds.
I mean, the idea is that you do have connected maps like we have right now. The only difference is that maps are dynamically loaded before you even get there. And so you can just smoothly walk from one area to the next and you don't really see the section. So, and of course there might be some places where we don't continue the maps, and there of course the camera will be stuck. But that's something I actually notice when designing areas. It's always, you have to design your area in a way that there's only few exits which are relatively narrow. If you don't do this, it's a little bit weird to navigate, and it feels weird because you're leaving somewhere and then you're entering next area and at a different place. And it's sorry. So and that is kind of like why I think even though it might be challenging, but if you have like a game with one connected world where exploration is a thing, I think it's a great thing to have that, because it gives you more options to design your world more interesting, I think. What is up with his head?
I wanna kill this person with just arrows.
Okay, good luck.
Don't kill me.
I'll make you bleed!
Amazing.
Every time, wow.
That's how you use arrows.
So use arrows. Close range combat.
They're more effective. It's like a shotgun.
You have actually multi-shot, so there you go. Oh, 27. So see.
So Eleanor Awesome says, "Don't do it. Your map barriers are the best." Okay. But why? That's my question.
I mean, basically what we will do is we can still make it so that there are constraints, so that we make sure that...
The thing is, the map layouts will be pretty similar, in fact. It's kind of like, we will not have huge open spaces where you can just move in any direction. There's never an end, because this is just...
hiding by the tree.
this is just boring. Yeah, of course, I mean, save points is an argument, but we just have to figure out a different system. And I would actually argue that save points, the way we handle right now, are maybe not the best way, because it's not very transparent. It's actually something you don't understand in the beginning, and this time you understand, okay, there's always a checkpoint whenever you move from one map to the next.
Yeah, I mean, we could make it more transparent by just doing what everyone else does and having like a small icon, and whenever that icon is shown, then we're saving.
Yeah, something like that. Or like having some kind of symbol where you can just save any kind of thing. So like, which is more traditional, I suppose. Okay. Because it's where it's somewhere you see you can't reach, and you have a general idea of where you go with the maps, limits bound. It doesn't waste any my time, and your currently map design is the best I've ever... Well...
Yeah, the map design and the layouting will not change.
Yeah, that's the thing. The layout will not change. It's more like... it will just feel a bit more natural, because right now there's stuff like, whenever we design a town, we always have to make sure that like you can only exit the town. Like one example that I like to bring up is Rhombus Square, like those houses in this one area. We actually have to make sure that you cannot jump into the garden of some of these houses because if they're at the edge, because then you could just logically navigate out of them to the next area. And so you have to kind of like awkwardly place the houses in a way that it works well with the map bounds. And that really limits the way how you can design stuff. And the general idea is like the structure of the next game will be probably really pretty similar. So I don't think it's a good idea to have huge open worlds in a top-down 2D game in the first place. Because again, you cannot see far. So you cannot really use the like looking into the distance to know where you need to go. That's why having a more narrow space to navigate is always a good thing. But it's still, I mean, having those strictly separated maps kind of like, it really limits the way how you design your areas and kind of sometimes feels unnatural. And it makes things just in general more complicated for us in particular. Like we always have to design things in a way that it works well with those map bounds. Rumble Square is too open. Well.
Rumble Square isn't really that open. Not right now.
No.
Has like what, 4 maps?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's meant to get like bigger.
Yeah, there's supposed to be more maps. I mean, I don't really see the big difference to Rumble Square and the other areas and towns in the game. Dieser Chat ist jetzt Deutsch. No, it isn't. Bad anime taste, man. Shut up.
Yeah. And people who say that are also people who watch German dubs, subs.
Right. Right.
Who would do that? It's insane, man. I think I know where I want to go. I want to go here. I'll check out this lake.
Well, so infinity simplex means, well, that complication in your design process takes away some of the complexity during gameplay. I don't really agree.
No, not.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, these bounds are 100% arbitrary. It's like you have to design things in a certain way that just, I don't know, it's like everything has to be square. Everything has to fit into a square neatly. And that is like the big restriction. It's like having everything fit into squares or rectangles neatly doesn't make the game less complex. It's just an arbitrary constraint that is there because of technical reasons. So I'm pretty sure you can design a game that will feel very close to how CrossCode feels. Just things will just feel more seamless. I don't know. I mean,
that's pretty. Look at the god rays, the light shaft.
Ooh, oh yeah.
I remember when it was said like, yeah, this is like high-end processing, and now we have like dynamic light shafts that react to react to the surrounding and cast realistic shadows. Like you can see, like this is casting a real, like a physical-based shadow, a long shadow because I'm standing on this cliff.
Oh damn, rendering
And
like that.
often when you think about older games, you say like, oh yeah, this game doesn't look that much better, and then when you really go back, then you're like, oh damn, I was wrong. This looks much better. Because often when you play a game, you make it prettier in your memory than it is, than it was.
That could be, yeah.
Have you ever played GTA again?
Better stay hidden.
Not a pretty game.
So basically, like, oh, you meant the square area maps. I thought you meant the access gates. What exactly do you mean with access gates?
Access gates, yeah.
Access gates.
You mean like the one where all those players running around from one teleporter to the other?
I mean, the thing is, every design needs kind of like these narrow spaces where you have to go through. That is always a good thing to have for a lot of reasons, because it constrains the player movement, and you absolutely need this to design certain kind of events. If you remove this entirely, it kind of like limits a lot what you can do in a game, and you kind of a little bit you feel this in open world games, even in Breath of the Wild, where a lot of quests usually evolve around, yeah, you need to talk to this NPC for things to start. There's like not very often this kind of surprise moment where something happens out of nothing because you just moved through a certain square where people predicted you would move through. So that's like, even no matter if you have like separate areas or like connected areas, you always need these narrow design ways, I think, to have an interesting structure and use these constraints. I mean, even the Witcher 3 is fairly open, admittedly, so mostly you can walk around, but they do have certain parts where you have to go through narrow spaces. Namely, if you go to a town and then you have to go out of town again, or you go into the cave and then you have to go out of the cave through one exit. And they really use this to design certain quests, so they kind of like trigger certain events when you leave through this narrow exit. Because they can kind of like, they expect you to leave through that through those areas. It's also actually one of those things where I would consider disabling being able to teleport from absolutely every point to every other point.
I knew that you would bring this.
Yeah.
Like I agree. Like doing this kind of
like it makes it really hard to design quests sometimes, because he always has to assume, yeah, the player can at any time teleport to this point, and you can really expect the player to walk to certain things. That's why very often, sometimes we had to go as far as to just disable teleportation feature in certain moments, so we could make sure the player does not escape. So that's why I'm considering of disabling that. Like only being able to teleport away from certain spots. Also, Bad Anime Tastemans said sorry that he's not able to join all the gaming streams, but that's fine. I mean, we just stream and see who is interested. And is it weird to talk about game dev stuff during gaming streams? I mean, I don't know. I thought that would be interesting.
Not sure I can
me
handle
too.
this.
Like I mean, I could, if I would play this. Oh damn, they all have them deadly heads. Probably should not engage with them. Huh? What's the level on those? 36. Damn. All right. I would probably be pretty quiet
Okay.
in these types of games because I kind of want to listen to the shit that's going on. Or I would
Okay.
be making fun of it.
Infinity Simplex actually said, for what I saw and the little I played, the access restrictions to areas based on player progression made sense. Okay, now I understand what you mean. You mean this kind of doors where you can only walk through if you have certain shades. So this kind of like making sure that you cannot enter the whole world right from the beginning.
That's something we will do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's something we have to think about. I mean, again, like on the one hand, I like this, because that's essentially how you can make sure that you don't fight too overpowered enemies right from the beginning. And so I'm actually fine with that. So we don't really have to make this kind of open world where we can just explore absolutely everything right from the beginning.
Yeah, I think open world is definitely a territory where you need more people to.
Yeah, it's
to
not
create
necessarily, but like
interesting content. And I kind of
yeah.
liked how we did crosscode. So we, for each area, it was like this process of, okay, we take a theme, and then there are some assets, and then we go ahead and create this layout for the for the crest. And I really liked working on those layouts bit by bit, instead of like, it would be a huge undertaking to make sure that every area connects neatly with every other bigger area. You know what I mean? To
you
have
mean like in terms of graphics or what?
Not graphic. I think like making overarching graphics isn't that hard. But kind of having each area on their own, or having like a clear cut between them, like in Zelda games, right? You're often between huge areas. You have like one of those doorways.
Or like very narrow passages where you go from one area to the
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we can do the same essentially. We just have to add like some narrow cliff structures.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, even Breath of the Wild did this to some extent. Even though there you could, of course, just climb over the mountain if you wanted.
But
I don't want to go that.
Definitely
don't want to go that far.
Like I was following the path they set out for me.
Yep, I did too, and that they really assumed you did that because they scripted a lot of events along that. But I think in theory you could just climb over the mountains. Yeah, that's just how this game works. Okay, I think there was a question by Eleanor Awesome. How expensive is Z ordering and crosscode? That is actually okay, before that there was another comment I would like to read first. Well, you can't combine if with a completely open world with, say, a higher level plot manager in the game that triggers or spawns such events, but that's not what I mean. I mean e.g. the green leaf gate that prevents starter players from leaving the... Yeah, okay, so in that case I agree. I don't necessarily want to design like an open world where you can go everywhere absolutely from the very beginning, because that is, I mean, that's what a lot of games do these days, but I'm not sure that's always a good thing depending on what you want to achieve. Especially if you want to have a somewhat narrative-driven game, it can be a big restriction. So, okay, so now about the Z ordering. That's a bit hard to say. I mean, Crosscode has ordering sprites along the Y-axis. Actually, in our case, they're also sorted along the Y-axis. Isn't that... I mean, that's not expensive. We limit that to only visible. That's actually one of the big advantages of having top-down games, or like 2D games in general, is like you have a very limited amount of stuff on the screen, because you don't have this you can look far in the distance thing. So that's why it's you can always assume there's not too much objects on the screen, so ordering them is not a big deal. I mean, what is really complex about Crosscut is how we do not only sort things along the y-axis, but we also have to render them in certain ways that it also works with the z-axis. We don't have a def buffer in crosscode. That is actually one of the painful aspects about rendering. So that's why it's a bit hard to like the way we make the rendering work in crosscode is actually pretty hacky, and sometimes it leads to the strange issues where we have to do workarounds. It's one of the main reasons why I want to use WebGL for the next project, so we don't have to deal with that as much. Okay.
We also with WebGL we can like make maps make more sense. We could like have shadow layer behind objects.
We can.
We have perspective.
Yep, if we actually use perspective, that's actually something I still want to see how that looks like. But if it looks good, I would definitely do it, because perspective essentially means you have parallax scrolling. So. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a wall.
Good time of the day, says Stefan with many names. Okay. Good day, Stefan.
Very
Well, I noticed something. I never fast traveled in Assassin's Creed since Assassin's Creed Rogue. Okay. Do you actually fast travel in Assassin's Creed?
In this game, yeah, you can fast travel. I also fast travel, definitely. I don't want to move from A to B. I mean, what I don't like about the game is like there are only a few fast travel points, like along the point. Like I wish, for instance, that each town would have one, but instead only like some towns have a.
Okay.
And like this big town has just one. But I guess it's not that bad because everything is like squished together. It's obviously not a one-to-one map of Greece. So
yeah, and I think none of the open world games is a one-to-one map, because people always underestimate how big our real world is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's always interesting. Like people say, yeah, I mean GTA 5 is such a big map, but did you ever look at Los Angeles in Google Maps? you'll be surprised. Okay, there's another question. Why use a web-based engine if the game is going to be sold as an executable? It was mostly because we just like to work with the technology, and to some extent it's actually pretty neat. I mean, I don't really regret it. To be fair, I can't really compare it because I didn't work with a lot of other engines, so it's a bit hard to look at this objectively. But the thing is, we essentially created our own engine. Creating your own engine in HTML5, I would argue, is a lot easier compared to creating a high-performance engine in another language like C++. Maybe something like C# might be similar in terms of complexity, but there's just one thing about HTML5 which is really nice, and that's creating interface for stuff like editors.
Yeah, that's...
So we did not just only create an engine to run the game, but we just created a whole suite of editors based on HTML5, and that worked really, really well for us to create content more efficiently. And that's essentially how we managed to create so much content, even though it took us still 7 years. But imagine we are a pretty small team in CrossCode. It really has a lot of content. That's because we
only 3 people actually create the content.
Yeah, only 3 people actually actively created content. So that's how we only managed to create so much, because we did have all these editors that were really easy to create with HTML5. And so that's why, I mean, the whole project just started with me wanting to create an HTML5 game. So it was never was like, we didn't start by thinking, okay, what would be the best technology? I would just went ahead and did stuff in HTML5, and that's how it turned out to be like that. The only downside is really console That's the only big downside. And that for some people it doesn't run as great, and there is freaking memory leaks that are hard for us to fix. That is like some of the downside. But it still runs well enough that people, or at least on PC, can play it for several hours, like half a day, and it's running fine.
Right. I'm going to kill first this guy. Can't even mark him. Oh, he's dead. Okay.
Eleanor Awesome asks, is the game too big to be played in the browser now? How big is the download would be? Actually, I think you can still play the game over the browser. It still would work reasonably well, because we have we only load resources as they are required. And I think, yeah, I mean, loading the music is kind of like troublesome, so it might take, like, loading times would be longer if you switch maps, if you play it over the browser, but in theory it would work. It's just that there's several aspects about browsers makes it a bit more annoying, like you have different browsers and you cannot control which browser users are using, so it's a bit the game might run worse for users because of that. Couldn't the music be streamed? Yeah, the thing about the music is I would love to stream it, but streaming just doesn't work well with looping. That's the big downside. Like when it used normal HTML5 audio elements, the music is streamed essentially because it can play this music by default, it's preloaded. But when you use HTML5, the regular audio element, timing the playback of looping music is pretty challenging. It's like it's not very accurate. So when you loop the music, it just doesn't work as good as you want to have. That's why we decided for crosscode we actually play the music with web audio. Web audio requires you, when you use audio buffers where you actually can reliably control the playback, then you have to download the full audio and decode it before you can play it. So that's why we cannot stream the music. That is kind of how it is. That's really like really a downside of the web right now. I mean, ideally I would like to have a way to just loop the music, but still stream it. So you're saying Construct 3 streams music, okay. Does it also provide options to loop the music?
Maybe web audio has some new features.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. It's definitely something to look at. I do know that web audio provides an option to actually play HTML5 audio elements in the pipeline, but the playback is again controlled by the HTML5 audio element, and that's why looping is probably unreliable. Okay.
Also, you couldn't apply effects and stuff like that, and I know that at least.
Okay, so another question about Construct 3, because apparently it does have looping. How exactly does looping work? Because what we need in crosscode is not just playing one track and loop it, but actually having it slightly overlapping when looping it, because that's how you have this seamless audio with a unique intro. Like our music's composed like we have an intro, then you have a main part, and then you just loop this main part over and over again. And that requires you, I mean, there's two things that you need for that. At least you just need an option to loop an audio track, but not from the beginning, but from somewhere in the middle, essentially. That's what you need. That is actually, web audio provides this option actually. That's something we don't use. We do something less convenient, which is actually probably why people have these weird overlapping audio issues sometimes.
Which is something.
It plays by tag and multiple fonts can overlap, and once it's finished streams, it's crashed, I think. Okay. Oh, maybe that's something we should look into, how other engines like Construct 3 do it, but I don't think Construct 3 is really open source, right? Probably hard to see how they implement it exactly.
Yeah, it's a proprietary set,
Yeah.
I still wonder if not someone could make something that takes JavaScript code, transforms it into a lower end language, and
There is stuff like this.
lets us basically run this for consoles or make it so we can still work with JavaScript but have better performance and stuff like that. You know?
I mean, something that we can look into is just WebAssembly, because WebAssembly allows you
yeah, exactly.
to write stuff. Well, you have to write those components not in JavaScript but a different language, but it doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah.
Like the physics, the rendering. Then you can compile those to something that hopefully can work together with other JavaScript code and run faster.
That would be perfect. Like, I just like the language.
Yeah,
Syntax.
it's nice to work with, and at least for like the simple stuff, it's definitely a nice thing to work with.
And I think for like our editors, those don't need to run on console.
No, definitely not.
So.
Okay, so bad anime taste man says, oh no, Felix plays a girl. Normal. I would look for the next 20 hours more on a girl butt and a man than a man butt. Well, thing is, actually Stefan is playing, not me. But as far as I understood, most people are playing the girl in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, taking the guy is literally the wrong option. Objectively wrong.
It's not canon or what?
It's not canon. I mean, why would I take generic dude guy instead of badass mercenary girl? That's a very easy choice. Right, how do I get out of here? Do I have to climb?
A lot of impaled people here.
Yeah, it's like some voodoo clan shit going on here.
No.
I mean, this thing is called like the hole to the
She
entrance to
buns.
the underworld, as it's called. Oh, there's still a treasure here, so into the probably totally fine version.
It's not like you see the buns, really, so... you only see a skirt.
Hey, sometimes when she jumps and stuff.
Yeah.
For sure, but... whatever, man. When you look at that, then that's on you, not on me. It's not my fault that Greek was like, no pants.
No pet society. That's why they have been so successful. But it was a skill that has been lost with time.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Feels sad, man. But this guy is alive, but he doesn't want to come out with me. 100% sure he's connected to a quest. And I'm just here already with these impaled people.
You're not supposed to be here yet.
Chillin'. I'm gonna take a photo of this. Me and my homies. Oh no, that's the skirt. See? I can do this. I'm sorry, Chad.
Oh no! Ooh, panty shots. Doing panty
shots
shots.
in my video game.
Oh. More likely than you
Are we
think.
going to get banned now?
Ooh. I mean, that's very in line with our usual anime theme, so... Oop.
I don't even know how realistic it would be for the game to force a guy on you, because back then probably still was true that men were mostly responsible for fighting and shit.
Okay.
I mean, you are a mercenary, so it makes sense, right?
I mean, there is like this physical difference.
She
That
is
is
pretty
hard to
buff, so...
ignore. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying there's not buff woman, but there's a reason why are different Olympic categories for men and women, stuff like that. But then again, maybe that's not so relevant if you're assassin, you know. So that's why I can
I think also back then you probably had pretty easy way with men as a woman being an assassin.
Maybe.
No,
Oh, yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah, that's actually true. If people underestimate you and stuff like that, so
Yeah.
that's another good argument. It's always like arguing too much about realism. It's you know, it's a game, but you found an exit.
Yeah, you just have to go back the same way again.
Yeah, you can just climb everything. It's no problem.
That's true. Yeah, in this game, actually, yeah, since I think, I mean, since every game, that's kind of the thing of
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed, I guess. You can climb anywhere you want. I just want to find a Spartan camp that I can raid.
Hmm.
Maybe this. I'll just check everything out. Also, you can like engrave your weapons, which I don't do. So I guess combat is a little bit harder on me.
Hmm.
You could make them stronger, but I think like you get better weapons every time. So let's Athens. Oh. Wait, let's see. That's Athens too. Why did we do it the hacky way instead of breaking the level into pieces and rendering those? Well, it's kind of already the case.
Yeah, if things would be that easy, sure. Like just split it up and sort it. But there are like certain cases where like it's like you need to split up things on a pixel by pixel basis to make it work. Honestly, there's like one famous example I can always name you is like the fence, the diagonal fence. If you have a diagonal fence in a top-down game, good luck sorting that. Because it doesn't depend on your Y position. It depends on some complex relation of X and Y positions. And then the only thing you need is like several of those fences placed in an awkward position. Then you have like almost close to impossible situation that there's no way to render this correctly with a single pass. So you need to start rendering entities in several steps. So that's just one thing. I mean, there's like when you stand on top of crates, it also becomes more complicated. So it's like I spent so much time thinking about that, and I was just happy finding something that works well in most situations. And it worked well enough for us, but the only way to do this better pretty much is by using a dev buffer, I think. That's at least I think this is the best approach, essentially. Because we do already we do break the level into pieces. We do have several levels, and we just render each level first. Like always render one level, then the entities between on this level, and then the next level, and again the entities which are overlapping with that level. And that means sometimes we have to render entities already in several passes, so to make it work. Now the thing is, each level means you have to do another rendering step. If everything is aligned with those levels, it's easy. But unfortunately, if you have more complex terrain and then there's like entities where you can stand out but they're not exactly aligned with those levels, that is where the hacky part starts. Because then you kind of like want to make this work, but you do not want to have a rendering step for each possible height. Because that is really not feasible. That becomes really too slow. There might be like too many levels of platforms where it can stand, or like too many different Z platforms. So that's why you have to hack. I mean, I actually even prepared a small presentation about this once, which I actually never showed in a stream. I mean, that's something I could maybe show in a stream once, like how we do the rendering crosscode a bit more in detail. Even though I don't really explain how the algorithm fully works, but I get somewhat close to it. So, and then you get an idea why it's so hacky, why it's so complicated, and why it works for most people. Okay, I guess people want to see that. Maybe I can do this sometime next week. Because I think I still have the presentation, I just have to find it.
And see if everything still works. You probably did it with slide.
Oh boy.
Right?
Actually, I don't think this presentation used a lot of cross-code integration, so I have to see.
But it is slide.
Yeah, it is slide, yeah.
No presentation without slide chat.
Of course. I mean,
That's-
that was a great framework. Still is,
That
hopefully.
that is pretty cool. Like I remember, like there are flash things you can use, and that was so slow. And then there's like
Bad Anime Tasteman actually says, well, I'm gone, so is tomorrow a dev stream? Yes, so tomorrow will be a regular game dev stream. Still have to figure out what to work on, really. I'm currently in like such an unproductive phase. I really have to. I need something more precise to work on. I know, but I actually kind of feel bad about not doing stuff right now. So I think I need to find something more precise to work on again. I think I actually will feel better if I have something to work on.
Oh. My therapist says that you shouldn't do the limbo thing where you do half work, half chill.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's
Kinda. Yeah. Maybe that's kind of like the problem. In any case, there will be game dev stream tomorrow. We need those view counts, and we get good views in game dev streams, so we definitely could do this tomorrow. Hey, Crosscode Odyssey when?
Crosscode
2030, maybe.
Soon TM.
Yeah.
That is the answer to that question.
So Eleanor sent us some kind of video on Imgur, but it doesn't load for me. He sent me something and tells me, why wouldn't this work? I have no idea, it also doesn't work for me. Or do you mean like this kind of approach? Like, I know. Oh, okay. Oh,
Oh, actually, something I just remembered. Well, Eleanor's searching. I saw a very weird video, which basically said, "Yeah, look, Assassin's Creed Unity is looking better than Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so it's a better game." So, and at first I thought like, okay, like, no, but let's give this a shot. Look what this person has to say, and it was kind of weird how he kind of used the graphic as a kind of this excuse, because this is an open world game, right? This has a completely different set of struggle than Assassin's Creed Unity, which basically was one big city area, which with a much less varied structure, with a more predictable pipeline. So obviously they could use higher texture models and more details on all those buildings. Instead of here where you have like a lot of rocks, and those rocks clearly don't have the best textures, like, damn.
Yeah, but you know,
Come on.
that's priorities.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's so.
having less precise graphics is still okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanna comment on Eleanor Awesome because I actually managed to see the video now. So the thing that you sent me is actually a simple use case. That's because all the objects rendered here do not overlap in X and Z axis. They are all separate. Like, it becomes complex if you have objects which are on the ground but overlapping each other in X and Z dimension. That is actually when stuff really becomes tricky. And here it's like it's pretty straightforward because like you essentially have isometric tiles and stuff on these isometric tiles. And there's like you can figure out a pretty clear rendering order which works fine. And yeah, as it's shown like on the right side, like you first render like the bottom row, then the row below that, and the row below that. So now imagine there's one of these tiles which spans over two of those. That is when stuff becomes tricky. So now just imagine, instead of having two separate orange tiles, you have one very long orange tile which spans over two tiles. Now render this, please. This is when it becomes really tricky. And that is what we have in crosscode. And that's why we had to do some weird stuff to make it work.
There you go, Jan. Also,
Yeah.
let's get the stream to an end.
Yep.
My roommate
We streamed
just
for
came
2
in and
hours.
said she's going to make food.
Oh my gosh, food. Right.
And I
Break it up. Well, if you start breaking up stuff like this, that means you have to render stuff for each and every tile, which is actually something we don't do in crosscode. Crosscode, we actually don't render tile by tile. We render a lot of stuff at once, because rendering tile per tile is not something that is feasible in HTML5. It becomes really slow very fast if you use Canvas 2D. And so simply breaking up was not an option. For performance reasons, pretty much. So that's why we had to do the hacky thing. If you use WebGL, that's a different story, but if you use WebGL, you have depth buffer, and you should use it in these kind of situations to avoid troubles like these, I think.
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess this concludes our small Radical Fish Games stream.
Games. This reminds me of this one boats scene from How I Met Your Mother.
Yup. Okay, so I guess there's no soundboard here, right? Nope.
No soundboard.
No soundboard
None
in
of
my
these
stream.
fancy.
That was actually pretty great when we played Secrets of Grania yesterday. There was this Naniva, and there was one dialogue where somebody says Nani va, and then we could use the Nani sound. That was great. Nani va.
Alright, so let's save the video game.
Alright.
Quit to the desktop.
Right. Oh, you're making similar game. I'm gonna have a look then. Anyway, I guess that's it. So. Story Punch Online. Okay. Interesting.
I really appreciate your insight.
Right. Oh, it looks interesting.
Oh, I know what we can play next time when I stream. Warframe, because Warframe you can easily talk over. It's just doing missions, and people can actually join.
Oh, that's actually interesting. Yeah.
Should have followed that. Now I'm seeing the launch icon.
All right. So, yep. Bye bye.
Bye bye.